All right, let's get right into it. For more than 40 years, the U.S. has been stuck in this massive standoff, wrestling with one of the toughest questions we face. We're talking about a story that's all about science, politics, and this epic battle over one single lonely mountain out in the Nevada desert.
And at the core of this whole thing is a problem you just can't ignore. I mean, what do you do with 89,000 tons of nuclear waste? Right now, we've got all this incredibly dangerous high-level radioactive stuff, mostly spent fuel from power plants, just sitting around in temporary storage at 76 different places all over the country. It can't stay there forever. It has to go somewhere permanent. The big question is, where?
Well, for the federal government, the answer seems simple: Yucca Mountain. But for the state of Nevada, that was the starting gun for a 40-year fight. And I mean, right from the get-go, Nevada put up this relentless, bipartisan wall of opposition. It really turned into this classic David versus Goliath story, with the state going up against the full power of the U.S. government.
Now, you have to understand the government's side of this. Their position is pretty clear. The country needs one single, permanent, super secure place to store its most hazardous waste. I mean, you can't just leave this stuff scattered all over the map in temporary spots forever, right? And that basic conflict, that's what's been fueling this entire battle for decades.
So, you gotta ask, how did this one specific mountain become the ground zero for the entire nation's nuclear waste problem? Well, the story isn't exactly a straightforward tale of pure science. It's really about a political process that, let's just say, took a very sharp turn.
This timeline really lays it all out. See, at first, back in 1982, the plan was solid. The law created this careful, scientific way to compare a bunch of different sites all across the country. But then, just 5 years later, bam, Congress changes the law, throws out that whole scientific comparison, and just points the finger at one place, Yucca Mountain. Nevada lawmakers weren't happy, famously calling it the Screw Nevada Bill. Fast forward to 2002, the site gets the official recommendation. But by 2010, everything changed again. The politics shifted. Congress yanked all the funding, and that's what led to the stalemate we're still stuck in today.
And just to grasp the incredible scale of what we're talking about, listen to this quote from way back in 1986 by former Nevada Governor Grant Sawyer. He said, "This is the first time mankind has tried to build something that has to work for over 10,000 years. I mean, think about that. All of our recorded history barely covers that amount of time. This isn't just some engineering project. It's like trying to build a tomb that has to outlast the pyramids, a warning sign for a future that might not even understand our language. Because this waste, it stays deadly for tens of thousands, maybe even a million years."
But look, Nevada's opposition wasn't just, a simple "not in my backyard" complaint. Not at all. The state has put together this incredibly detailed scientific and technical case, basically arguing that Yucca Mountain is just fundamentally the wrong place for the job.
Okay, so their first major objection, it's the geology itself. What you really want for a place like this is a deep, super stable, dry rock formation. But Yucca Mountain, it's in an earthquake-prone area. And the rock isn't one solid, stable block. It's full of fractures. To make things worse, some recent research backed by the state suggests the earthquake risks could be even higher than the original studies thought.
And that brings us to their second big concern: water contamination. See, the plan is to build the storage tunnels above the water table. That means any rain or snowmelt is going to seep down right through all those fractured rocks. And Nevada's argument is that this water could, over time, eat away at the waste containers and then carry radioactive particles down into the groundwater. And that groundwater moves fast, straight into the Amargosa Valley, which is a vital water source for farming, mining, the whole region. So to deal with that water problem, the Department of Energy came up with this really futuristic solution. They plan to install more than 11,000 huge titanium drip shields over all the waste containers. But here's the crazy part. The plan was for robots to install them, 100 years after the waste is already in the ground. I mean, you're talking about a plan that relies on technology that doesn't really exist yet and basically kicks the can down the road, asking future generations to finish the job and pay for it.
And listen, the concerns don't just stop at the edge of the mountain, not by a long shot. Just to get all this waste to Nevada, the government would have to kick off the biggest shipping campaign of nuclear material in history. And that's what makes this a truly national issue.
I mean, just look at this map of the proposed routes. We're talking about a 50-year-long operation. Thousands upon thousands of shipments of spent nuclear fuel rolling by truck and by rail, crisscrossing the entire country from 76 different starting points. This is a plan that literally brings the issue right to the doorsteps of millions and millions of people.
So think about this.
These shipments would roll through more than 40 states. They'd also cross the tribal lands of at least 30 Native American tribes.
They'd travel through a whopping 960 different counties.
And here's the big one. All told, these routes would pass through communities where an incredible 75 million Americans live. The scale of this whole transportation plan is it's immense. Which brings us to where we are today. The whole project is basically frozen, stuck in this political and financial limbo. And that's forced us to have a national conversation about, well, maybe there's a different way to do this.
So let's just break down this stalemate. As you can see here, there hasn't been any real funding for this thing since 2010. But here's the weird part. Legally, Yucca Mountain is still the only site authorized by law. We've already sunk about $8.5 billion into this project, and the total estimated cost has just ballooned to $119 billion. It's a perfect definition of a zombie project. Legally, it's alive, but for all practical purposes, it's completely dormant.
And this whole deadlock has really brought two completely different ways of thinking to the surface. On one hand, you've got the Yucca Mountain approach, which is called forced siting. It's a top-down decision where the government basically says, this is where it's going. On the other hand, there's this alternative idea, consent-based siting. That's where the government actually works with communities that are willing to host a site. It's a collaborative approach, and it's actually worked pretty well in other countries, like Finland and Sweden.
So why does solving this whole mess matter so much? Well, this chart really puts everything into perspective. If you look at the safety of different energy sources, I'm talking about deaths from accidents, from air pollution, the whole shebang, nuclear power is actually one of the safest sources we have. I mean, it's dramatically safer than coal or gas. But here's the thing. If nuclear is going to be a serious part of our clean energy future, we absolutely have to figure out what to do with the waste. We have to solve the back end of the problem.
And that really leaves us with this final, really important question. At the end of the day, the battle over Yucca Mountain isn't just about rocks and transportation routes. It's about something much bigger. It's about how we as a country decide to tackle these huge, complicated problems that are going to affect people for generations to come. Do we force a solution from the top down, or do we try to build one together through consent? The answer to that question is going to shape a lot more than just our energy future. It's going to define how we solve our toughest problems, period.